Hey folks, welcome back to the Frontier Western Heritage Channel. I'm Todd Kessner here outside of Bozeman, Montana at the gun range, and today we're going to test the 4440 versus the 45 Colt with 3F black powder. So if you watched the last 4440 versus 45 Colt video, I used 2F powder because I had some already loaded up. There were accuracy loads from some previous tests, and many of you wrote in and put in the comments, why didn't you use 3F? And we'd really like to see what difference there was in the velocities and the performance of the two cartridges head to head with 3F powder. So we're back doing that. I loaded them up with 3F GoX, 40 grains in each. So I got 40 grains in the 4440 and also 40 grains in the 45 Colt, and used traditional bullets that would have been historically as close as I could get to historically correct bullets. And so the 4440 is shooting a 205 grain bullet, where the 45 Colt is shooting 250 grain bullet. Both of them black powder lubed, sitting over GoX powder. I used GoX when I did the 2F test, so it just made sense that I use GoX to do the 3F test. So we're using the same, at least the same manufacturer of powder from the 2F to 3F. We can compare really if we got any differences in velocity and that sort of thing. Not testing for accuracy right now because an accuracy load would cause me to play around with the powder charge. And what I want to do is I want to compare the same powder charge because both cartridges historically held 40 grains of black powder. So I wanted to compare the two cartridges with 40 grains of black powder, not one with 36 because it was accurate, another one with maybe 35 because it was accurate, or 38 or something like that. So I've got two revolvers here that we used last time. This time we're just going to change the powder charge. So I've got this is a Cimarron Uberti single action Army clone, but this one's in 44 WCF or Winchester center fire. Back in the day it was Winchester central fire. So I've got the Uberti Colt clone in 4440. And then I've also got a Uberti Colt clone in the 45 Colt, and both of these 5.5-inch barrel, identical guns, identical type of rifling, all that sort of thing. And so trying to get things as close as possible to compare apples to apples here as we go. So I gave the history of the two guns and the calibers and everything in that first video with 2F. I'm not going to repeat all that, but let's load up the 4440 first and see what we get for some velocities. All right, let's load up 6 of the 4440s and see what we get. All right, I got an error on that one. Might be shooting a little high. Let me try it again. I got a 992.6. I got substantial recoil comparing it to that 2F I shot a few weeks ago. .6, wasn't that what we had last time? $1,023. $997. That was right in my face. 999.8. Now, did I shoot 5 or did I shoot 6? As Clint Eastwood would say. We'll find out. Shot 6. Okay, I'm going to pop another couple more in there. I got extras just in case I didn't get a read. And that report or repeat read, I don't believe was because it was the same velocity. It's just because I didn't read it and move that. So let's put in a couple more. We were belting some high velocities though, and this thing has become almost uncomfortable to shoot with this particular set of grips. These Eagle grips are digging into me. I've never felt that before. Let's see if we can't get 2 more readings. .981. .975. So we're really hovering around that 1,000 feet per second with these touted up 40 grain 3F GoX rounds. So I'm going to make a little bit of an adjustment so I don't have to lay down so low to get through this thing and get a read. So I'm going to change this a little bit. The distance will be the same. I just got to raise up that chronograph somewhat and get the angle a little bit better. And we'll try the 45 Colt, see what kind of performance we get out of that. I gotta tell you that that 4440 recoil caught me off guard. I mean, I've shot a lot of full powered black powder rounds. There was substantial recoil with this 3F. I think we've seen the velocity feet per second increase substantially from the 2F, and that was a wicked round. So let's see what we get with 3F powder. Again, it's GoX powder in the 45 Colt. We'll put those through the chronograph and see where we end up. And I'm just going to go ahead and load the gun up with 6. And I've got a couple extra just in case we don't get a read again, but I've readjusted the, all right, that was 6 because I got an extra round. So readjusted the chronograph, and probably won't have to be at quite such a weird angle to try to get a reading. Let's see what happens. What do we got? 864. 875.2. 920. 850. 896.5. 855.2. Well, we got some consistency. I'm in the same place I was last time. All the excitement, I can't remember either. I shoot 5 or I shoot 6. I think I shot 6. Yep. That didn't surprise me as much as the 4440 round. I've shot a lot of 45 Colt with full black powder loads. The velocity was less than the 4440. I will tell you, when you use a compression die to get that powder pressed down so that the base of the bullet sits on it and the cartridge length is correct, GoX seems to work really well when compressed. and I had to compress the heck out of it to get 40 grains in these cases. And so the 45, with the 45 Colt, I didn't have to compress it at nearly as much, probably by 1/8 of an inch or so less than I had to compress the 4440. The 4440 case, since I'm using modern cases, they're not the old balloon head case that held more powder. So I had to really compress it pretty heavy in those 4440s. It's really seemed to perform well even when it was drastically compressed. 45 Colt, I'm kind of wondering if it made that much difference from 2F to 3F. I'm trying to remember the numbers from the last time around. But regardless, we've got some readings here, so we'll take a look at the energy between these two cartridges, compare them to the 2F velocities just for fun, and kind of see where we end up with this one. So let's take the figures that we recorded at the range and put them into our foot-pounds of energy formula, where foot-pounds equals the mass of the bullet times velocity squared divided by our constant, which is 450,437. And I've gone over the formula multiple times in previous videos, and so if you'd like more information on that, you can certainly watch those or find them on the internet as well. So let's start with the average velocity of the 4440 with 3F powder, and it gave us a reading of 995.1 feet per second. And so when we compare that back to the 2F powder, we had 913.1 feet per second, which is a pretty substantial increase, but not nearly as substantial as I thought it would be when I was feeling that recoil out at the range, but still a bit of a jump. So translating these velocities into energy with the mass of the bullet at 205 grains, our 3F powder is giving us 450.7 foot-pounds of energy, where the 2F powder gave us 379.6 foot-pounds of energy. So the velocity, the increase in velocity definitely affected the increase in energy as well, which it should, but pretty drastically increased that energy. So we see the same kind of effect with the 45 Colt, where we had an average velocity of 877 feet per second with our 3F powder, and looking back at our 2F powder had an average velocity of 829.4 feet per second. So translating our average velocities into foot-pounds of energy, we see that the 45 Colt with the 3F powder gave us an energy of 425 foot-pounds, where with 2F powder, that same 45 Colt, this is with 250 grain bullet, gave us an energy of 389.6 foot-pounds. So this is where things get really interesting for me, because if you remember my first question on the first video, if you happen to watch the first video of the 4440 versus the 45 Colt, the question was, the 4440 would be a versatile caliber because you could have it both in your rifle and in your pistol, while at the time the 45 Colt was not available in a rifle. So are you giving up anything by having the same cartridge in your rifle and pistol, energy-wise, compared to the 45 Colt? Well, with 2F powder, that 45 Colt outperformed the 4440 by 10 foot-pounds. So it really didn't amount to much. It's almost pretty equal, but you didn't give up really anything necessarily by going with the 4440. But right now, when we're looking at 3F powder, we have jumped the velocity enough in the 4440 that is actually outperforming the 45 Colt as far as energy goes. And so we've got 450.7 foot-pounds of energy with that 4440 and 425 foot-pounds of energy with that 45 Colt. So again, it may not make a whole lot of difference, but it's just interesting that not only with 3F powder anyway, not only were you not giving up anything by going with the 4440, you're actually doing better with the 4440 energy-wise than you would have with the 45 Colt. Now this is one powder, one test, one kind of bullet, and obviously it's not the end-all be-all to all of these different kinds of experiments that can happen, but it was a surprising switch to me that the 4440 outperformed the 45 Colt by 25 foot-pounds, a larger difference than we had with the 2F where the 45 Colt won. I thought that I felt the difference at the bench compared to the 2F powder, and I'm glad the numbers bore that out, because it's hard sometimes to really know the accuracy of your perceptions at the bench. So in this case, you're giving absolutely nothing up by going with the smaller, slightly smaller calibered, smaller bullet 4440 versus the 45 Colt. If you haven't yet subscribed, please hit that subscribe button and give me that old thumbs up if you like the video, please, because that just helps with the whole mechanisms of the channel and getting the word out there. So again, a lot of fun out at the range, got a lot of black powder smoke in my face, and we're going to keep looking at some different combinations of Old West stuff. So again, for today, I just want to thank you for coming. With 3F black powder. Kaboom.
You should pop up when you like said in the last video.
Yeah.
You should pop up a link.
Good idea. Excellent idea. And you should pop up a camera on my chronographer. Chronographer.
I don't know how you do that, but I'm sure you can figure it out.
I can figure it out because I know how to do that kind of thing now. Those are wicked.
It's probably you too.
Oh.